For our meditation, we were doing a series called Life in the Kingdom, and we looked at 3 topics under it: understanding the kingdom, the enemy of the kingdom, and last Saturday we looked at the message of the kingdom, which is the banner that we hold really high to the world to see that this is the message that we carry, and that message is the good news of Jesus Christ, or the gospel of Jesus Christ. I thought, since it's a special night and it's a night of worship, we'll take a break from that theme and look at something that I had shared about some time back. I want to revisit that incident and spend some time on the theme of worship, because this is a night of worship and we spend a lot of time worshiping God. And I shared a big chunk on this some time back when we were doing the Heart of Worship series, and the sermon that we spent a lot of time on was called The Heart of Worship, Only You Can Satisfy. And we spent a lot of time in an incident. If you can turn with me to Luke chapter 7, verse 36 to 50. Luke chapter 7, verse 36 through 50. And I'm going to read it out loud. It's a very interesting story, and I thank God for this truth, amazing truth that came out of it, that forever changed my life, and so this theme that has come out of it. I'm going to read Luke 7, 36 through 50. Then one of the Pharisees asked him to eat with him. And he went to the Pharisee's house and sat down to eat. And behold, a woman in the city who was a sinner, when she knew that Jesus sat at the table in the Pharisee's house, brought an alabaster flask of fragrant oil, and stood at his feet behind him, weeping. And she began to wash his feet with her tears, and wiped them with the hair of her head. And she kissed his feet, and anointed them with the fragrant oil. Now when the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, he spoke to himself, saying, This man, if he were a prophet, would know who and what manner of woman this is who is touching him, for she is a sinner. And Jesus answered and said to him, Simon, I have something to say to you. So he said, Teacher, say it. There was a certain creditor who had 2 debtors. One owed 500 denarii and the other 50. And when he had nothing with which to repay, he freely forgave them both. Tell me, therefore, which of them will love him more? Simon answered and said, I suppose the one whom he forgave more. And he said to him, You have rightly judged. Verse 44. Then he turned to the woman and said to Simon, Do you see this woman? I entered your house. You gave me no water for my feet, but she has washed my feet with her tears, and wiped them with the hair of her head. You gave me no kiss, but this woman has not ceased to kiss my feet since the time I came in. You did not anoint my head with oil, but this woman has anointed my feet with fragrant oil. Therefore I say to you, her sins, which are many, are forgiven, for she loved much. But to whom little is forgiven, the same loves little. Then Jesus said to her, Your sins are forgiven. And those who sat at the table with him began to say to themselves, Who is this who even forgives sins? Then he said to the woman, Your faith has saved you. Go in peace. There are 3 characters here that stand out. Jesus, Simon, the host, and the unwelcome intruder. She doesn't have a name, but she has a title, something that's stuck on her forehead, the sinful woman in the city. She already has a label. This has always been my struggle ever since I started to be a minister. And as I've shared with many of you, when the background that I come from, in my home, we're 2 brothers. I have a brother who's older than me by 2 years. And he was the prodigal in the house, and I was the Pharisee. So there is, and God in all his humor decided to say the prodigal first, and then through the prodigal, the Pharisee got saved, and through the two children, the parents got saved, and the story goes on. But so this, when I read this story, I can so identify with Simon. I just so easily fit into his shoes, and my journey as in ministry has always been a struggle between the two. I know my shoes are in Simon's shoes when I try to minister, when I meet people and hear the struggles, and I know that Jesus is pleased with the sinful woman, and I struggle with going into the sinful woman's shoes, and then I come back to the Pharisee shoes, and I go again to the sinful woman's shoes, and I know very well that it is right to be in the sinful woman's shoes, because that's what pleased Jesus at the end. And so when I say what came out of this, I fully appreciate and fully understand what it means to be in Simon's shoes, because this is a party that he invited Jesus to, and there are other men. I'm sure there's no other women there. There are a lot of men over there, and this is a nightmare for a host. This is a nightmare, written all over the wall for the host, because he's having the master at his home, and this woman, I think everybody knew her. Everybody knew her in the city, everybody knew her in the town, and she carried the label, and she comes rushing in to this party or this gathering or this meeting that she was not invited. And we spent a lot of time in that previous sermon looking at how Jesus is the only one that can satisfy. But I want to slow down here and look at it from a different angle. Jesus is sitting there feasting on the food that Simon has given to him, and this woman with this label is breaking absolutely all social conventions and norms over here. She is barging into the house of a Pharisee, where she is not invited, with a label on her forehead. And she comes there, and she does not just barge in uninvited. She does the most audacious thing. She decides to come to the master's feet, and there she stands there at the feet, not the head, at the feet, which is all filthy from these men walking many miles in a day. And Simon didn't wash his feet. Simon didn't give him a kiss. Simon didn't welcome him with a hug. So she goes to the feet, and there she stands, and there I don't know what it is that this woman was going through. It doesn't say clearly. But everything that she does over there, it's like a silent movie. Jesus is talking constantly with Simon. This woman does not talk at all. It's a silent movie. But through her silent movie, through her silent actions, and she does these, really from a side, and I know what it is to be in Simon's shoes. I know what it is to be a Pharisee, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, what is going on here? Who is wrecking my party? Who is this? What is this? Where is this woman come from? This was not expected. This was not anticipated. She barges in, and she does not just come barging in. She does not stop there. She comes to my guest, my chief guest, and she stands at his feet, and she wails, and she moans, and she cries. And you ever wonder how much can you cry to coat a man's feet completely with tears? And it gives me the picture that this is non-stop crying. And she doesn't say a word. She cries, and it's non-stop, and there's lots and lots of tears. When the feet are filled with tears, I don't think she got guilty or something like that. Oh no, I cried. His feet is full of my tears. Now I got to clean it up. And so she takes her glory, her identity, which is her hair, and she tries to clean it up. Wipe it clean. Then the Bible says she does not. Jesus I thought she just kissed his feet once, but it says there in verse 44, do you see this woman? I entered your house, you gave me no water for my feet, but she has washed my feet with her tears and has wiped them with the hair of her head. You gave me no kiss, but this woman has not ceased to kiss my feet since the time I came in. So it's crying, washing clean. Then kissing, then she cries again, washes it clean with her hair. Then she kisses it again, and then she cannot contain herself. She cannot stop herself. No, we do not know what is the story behind this woman. But I know one thing. This woman, whatever her history, whatever her occupation, whatever her status in the society, whatever her label is, this woman, to do this most audacious thing, is a woman who has come to an end in herself. She has hit rock bottom. She has come to an end in herself. She is so full of emptiness, so badly needs healing, that she breaks all conventions, all social norms, and all the boldness and the rashness and her audacity. She barges in and says, I know that the master is in the house of that Pharisee. I know who I am. I know who the host is. I know where I stand. I know where he stands. I know he's a man and I'm not invited to that party. I am come to an end in myself. There is no more turning back. It doesn't matter what is going to happen today. It doesn't matter what the consequence is going to be. It doesn't matter what the society is going to do to me. I have reached my end in myself. There is no turning back. There is no going forward. I need my cup filled. I am so empty. And she barges in and she does all those audacious things that makes Simon so comfortable. And I'm standing in Simon's shoes. I can just feel myself feeling so uncomfortable as to what this woman who was uninvited barges in and does to the master. And I can just, standing in his shoes, I can feel all so uncomfortable. I just want to share some things that I shared last time that I just want to just highlight before I close with what I want to share. Even though she is absolutely silent in what she is doing, but you can get glimpses of through all this silence. And these are the things that the Lord shared with me. Standing at the feet represents her humility and her helplessness. The woman is not talking. Jesus is doing all the talking. Jesus is talking with Simon. But the way she is behaving, the way she is acting, the things that she is doing gives you pictures of what this woman, through silently with no words, kind of gives you a glimpse of where this woman is coming from, what she's going through, and what exactly she's going to achieve or fulfill by audaciously and rashly coming into this situation. Her standing at the feet represents her humility and her helplessness. Her tears represent her sorrow, her brokenness, and her vulnerability. She's just, she can be laughed at, she can be mocked at, she can be looked down upon. She could be thrown out of the house. She could be condemned for whatever the law of the society is for what she's doing now. Her tears represent her sorrow, her brokenness, and her vulnerability. Her hair represents, when my wife gets ready, there are three things that she focuses on: her clothes, her hair, and her face. Three parts of getting ready. So I fully understand how important it is to her, even though whatever occupation she's involved in. Her hair is her identity, her hair is her glory, her hair is her self-worth. That represents. So Jesus, when she takes it down, and the dirty feet of this master, she wipes it clean of the tears. Wiping represents my utmost for his highest. This is my glory for his dirty feet. My glory for his dirty feet. My utmost for his highest. And a kiss represents affection and love. So this woman is not talking at all. By her very actions, if you take each of these actions, you can see what she's trying to do to the Savior, what she's trying to show to the world. Kiss represents affection and love, and it says, you have not stopped kissing my feet, the dirty feet, not stopped kissing my feet. And then she takes this very expensive perfume and pours it on the master's feet. Anointing represents setting apart for worship. Boldness, and then her boldness and her audacity represents her desperateness. I am done. I am come to an end in myself. My road is a dead end. There is no answer. I have tried everything. I am so empty. I am so broken. I am so in a mess, Lord. That she doesn't care what the outcome is. She barges in all her audacity and her boldness, irrespective of what the consequence is. And that represents her desperateness. And I believe strongly that she did what she did at that point, in the way that she did, at the time that she did, only because she realized this master is the only person who can comfort me, who can heal me, who can forgive me, who can restore me, and who can satisfy me. This is the only person who can come fill my cup, who alone can satisfy me. And what is the thought that I want to share here before we close is, I'm sitting there, and now I moved from the shoes of the Pharisee, and I put myself in the shoes of Jesus. And putting yourself in the shoes of Jesus was a very interesting scenario, because you have Jesus is the chief guest. The host is sitting there, Simon, and I'm sure there are other men, and the woman is standing at her feet, and Jesus standing there between the conversation, between what the sinful woman is doing at his feet and having this conversation with Simon the Pharisee. Jesus is comparing the way they are behaving, the way they are relating, the way they are approaching Jesus. And that I found very interesting. And I want to bring three comparisons out here. And the first thing is that Simon was very particular that he needed to invite the master. There should be food on the table. There should be guests. And Simon was showing to the master, this is my form of worship. This is my form of entertaining you or hosting you. This is my form of giving you my best. It was all external. The house, the guest, the invitation, the furniture, the food, the hosting, everything. Simon focused on an external form. And that's happening on one side. On this other side, this woman has absolutely no form. She breaks off. She's so unconventional, so out of place, so out of societal norms and conventions. And Jesus is saying, wow, you are so formal. You are trying to be a good host. Everything you do has an external form or grandeur to it. But I see who you're trying to fool. I see through your heart. You're arrogant. You're proud inside. And this woman at my feet, she has no form, no conventions, nothing. She breaks it all. One is trying to please or show worship with form and externality. Another one is showing her worship by pouring her inside out. Lord, I'm not holding nothing back today, Lord. I am going to show. It doesn't matter how silly I look, how bad I look, how much people can mock me and look down upon me. I am not holding anything back from you. I am going to do everything that's going to look awkward. It's going to look really awkward. It is actually awkward what is happening. It is awkward if you stand in the shoes of Simon. But Jesus is not acting any awkward at all. Jesus is not acting any awkward. Simon is feeling so awkward, so out of place, so uncomfortable at what's happening on that. His worship and everything that he's trying to do to the master is all based on external works, external form. So Simon focused on how he presented himself. The woman focused on how she presented herself from the inside, and she didn't hold anything back. which was very interesting when you stand in the shoes of Jesus. The second thought I want to share, even though Simon is saying stuff outside with his words, Jesus, because he's fully God and fully man, also can read the hearts and thoughts of men. Jesus knows very well that what he's saying is not matching with what his heart is thinking. And that is typical of a Pharisee. So the second thought, that I'm standing in Jesus' shoes and seeing what these two people are behaving, the second thought I wanted to share was that Simon is so Pharisaical in his attitude. His worship is all external, it has an outward form. His attitude is so Pharisaical because he's got sitting there and making this woman making him so uncomfortable. I'm sure he has, even though he's acting all holy and good before the master and telling him, Jesus, it actually is very interesting. It says in verse 39, now when the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, he spoke to himself. I'm sure he didn't speak it loud. When you speak to yourself, that means you're speaking in your mind, or he thought. He spoke to himself, that inside smirk, this man, if he were a prophet, would know who and what manner of woman this is who is touching him, for she is a sinner. So even though he is doing everything externally and doing everything right outwardly, inside he is uncomfortable, inside he is smirking, inside he is looking down upon Jesus, inside he is looking down upon the woman. So you have worship that has an external form, you have a Pharisaical attitude. But when you look at the woman, there is nothing Pharisaical about the woman. She is absolutely and totally desperate in her approach. When I say Pharisaical, when you observe Simon, Jesus knows very well what is happening on the outside is not matching what is on the inside. If you look at the woman, she has nothing to cover herself with. What she's literally doing by all those awkward acts is that she's bearing herself open and making herself vulnerable. I'm so messed up inside. This is how I'm so messed up inside that I'm not hiding it. Who am I to fool you? The Pharisee thinks he was fooling the master. But the woman didn't make even an attempt to cover up herself. The woman just laid it all open, laid it bare open and said, this is what I am struggling with. This is what I am going with. So Jesus standing there is examining and observing the behavior of these both people and he can immediately see the difference. One is concerned with the outside, while the woman is concerned with her inside. One is Pharisaical in his attitude. The other one is desperate in her attitude, that she's holding nothing back. And the last one, when you observe it from Jesus' shoes, is that you can, in the way he is thinking, the way he is speaking, and the way he is looking at the sinful woman, you can see arrogance and pride in this man. It's arrogance and pride. Because he's saying, I am a righteous Pharisee. This is my home. I invited the master. What is this sinful woman doing here? Touching and kissing and wiping and crying and all this drama. This man of God doesn't he have the insight to know who this woman is? Looking down upon the woman and the master in a very condescending attitude. That points to his arrogance and his pride. While the sinful woman is a picture of humility and gratitude. Humility and gratitude, because he actually even tells a story. And the conclusion of the story is, Jesus is telling the story to Simon, and the conclusion is the story is that he who is forgiven much loves much. He who is forgiven much loves much. The Pharisee is saying, I don't need to be forgiven. I am righteous. You don't even know who this woman is. You don't have a clue who this woman is. You don't know where she comes from. You don't know her label. You don't know how she's messed up. You don't know what the town is talking about her. She's messed up. I am righteous. I don't need anything from you. I don't need any forgiveness from you. But the master is saying, this is where you lost it all, my dear Pharisee. You lost it all. He who is forgiven or she who is forgiven much loves much. He who is forgiven much worships even more. So Jesus is looking at these two people and looking at their behavior and looking at their hearts and matching it with their behavior. And Jesus is saying, and the Pharisee would be so right to be commended and blessed by the master. But the master, after taking stock and evaluating these two people, and how their insides and their outsides match, how their intent of their hearts and their behavior match, looks at it and says, I'm going to bless the sinful woman. I'm going to bless the sinful woman. Jesus, at the end of it all, is saying, Jesus received the sinful woman's worship and reprimanded and rejected Simon's worship. So let me close here and remind you that when we, deep inside, I don't know whether this has ever occurred to you before I shared the last sermon, but deep inside, even though this is a story that there is a picture of righteousness and self-righteousness and arrogance and pride, in all its beauty, it's actually a woman, a messed up, broken woman who has reached the end point and there's no more, is coming to her master, who she feels is the only one who can solve this problem and satisfy her. Telling the master in no words, only you can heal me, only you can forgive me, only you can restore me, only you can satisfy me. This, I am not going to speak a single word, Lord. This is my worship unto you. It looks awkward. My worship is unconventional. My worship is desperate, and my worship is humble. And that is my reminder and my exhortation to you. When you come, and I know for somebody who has lived as a Pharisee, I so want to come and sit in the presence of God. I don't need anything from you, Lord. I don't need. These people have struggles. I don't have any struggles. Jesus will walk away from your worship. Jesus will reprimand you and reject everything that you bring to the table. Instead, he is saying, I will receive worship that is unconventional, where you don't hold yourself back. This woman didn't hold herself back. She brought everything to the table. She laid it all out and said, this is who I am, Lord. Only you can fix me. Only you can complete me. Only you can satisfy me. Only you can mend this broken vessel. And I bring it all and I lay it all. I might look awkward, but I know, and you might look awkward when you bring such kind of worship. But that is the kind of worship that pleases the Master. Let us be not only unconventional, let us be desperate when we come to worship. Lord, I think the best picture is the Jacob fighting with the angel. I am not going to let you go till you bless me. I am so broken. I am so empty, Lord. I am in your presence, in the assembly of your saints. Today I will not go from this place. I will wrestle with you. I am so desperate. I have come to an end in myself. It is those who come with a desperate attitude into the presence of God, into the house of God, that God will fill and go. If we come with our cups filled and we sit in our arrogance and our pride, we will go back, missing out on everything that the Lord wants to fill our cups with. And last of all, while the Pharisee was showing his arrogance and pride, this woman humbled herself. The fact that she came to the feet and did all that at the feet is a picture of humility. She humbled herself and she is able to love more worship more because she was forgiven more. The greatness and the depth of the forgiveness is so much that she can love the Master even more and worship Him even more. So let our worship be unconventional, let our worship be desperate, and let our worship be so done in humility and gratitude, because that is the kind of worship that the Master receives. That is the kind of worship that the Master is pleased with. That's the kind of worship that brings a smile to the Lord. And I just want to encourage you with that.